Building a stakeholder group feels fundamentally important to this work because without this group of organisations that have an investment in the results of the work and a desire to take it forward, you're going to be left with a report, a nice report with lots of good information in it, but it will risk just sitting there and not being turned into anything actually productive. You won't turn those economic opportunities into jobs and into reality unless you have a group of organisations committed to take it forward. So the stakeholder group feels to me to be a really essential part of the process.
Okay, so why are you doing this work in the first place? Well, you're doing this work because you want to transform the local economy, yeah? And so in pulling together a stakeholder forum, what you're really doing is kind of setting the stage for building a much wider coalition of organizations that can carry this kind of work forward. The stakeholder forum is like the kernel. They're like the little bit of sand around which the pearl hopefully will develop. So you want to engage them, bring them on board, create alignment with them, and keep them engaged for the long term, and then build a coalition around them.
Did we have a stakeholder forum? No, we didn't have one at the outset. There were the beginnings of a stakeholder forum in one or two groupings around particular topic areas, but just at the point at which we tried to construct a stakeholder forum, things happened that distracted a lot of people onto other efforts in the environmental field. So essentially, after a few months of trying to construct that stakeholder forum, we recognized that wasn't going to happen anytime soon, and we simply got on with the work, making individual relationships instead of bringing those into a stakeholder group. And the plan really turned into, we'll do the work and then we'll bring a stakeholder group together around the output. And that's what happened. Do you want me to go on and say whether that was helpful? I think it would probably be much more helpful if there was a stakeholder group from the outset. That should certainly be an early objective, and if you can achieve that, well and good.
One of the things that came up at our early stakeholder meeting was that we didn't really have good understanding of what our local economy was at that time, what kind of businesses we had, what their turnover was, how many people they employed, that kind of thing. So that was one of the reasons that we undertook the research, was to find out more about, well, what have we got at the moment, and provide a bit of a baseline for us that we could then measure progress against. But the main reason we did all the data analysis and the research was to put some numbers, some big numbers on the opportunities that we see in our local economic system. And those numbers are around the potential turnover, so the size of these sectors. So if we relocalise the food sector, what's it worth? If we retrofit all of our homes, what's it worth? Because we suspected these were going to be really big numbers and would relate to a number of jobs. And it was that research that came up with those numbers that then gave credibility to the document. So rather than just saying, oh, sustainability is a great thing and a new economy is a great thing, we can show that, and that's in the language of these stakeholders who are interested in jobs and turnover.
So some of the tangible benefits that we got in Totnes were financial, and they were in kind. So it just, by nature of the conversations, the relationships that we built, when people started to see how they could use their resources to support us, and it didn't have to necessarily be cold hard cash. So in the case of the district council, they had an old office building that they don't use anymore, so we asked them if we could have that on licence for a peppercorn rent, and they said yes, and to use that for an incubator. The town council offered a old listed building that needs work doing to it as an incubator, and we're looking at working with South Devon College to fit that out as part of their apprenticeship scheme. Kevix, a local upper school, offered to print the economic blueprint for us, saving us money. And
we had a visioning workshop with our stakeholders, and we brought them all together, and we talked about what outcomes we want to see from our new economy and what purpose we want it to serve. And it was, like I say, it was really easy to get to this point of everyone saying, well, the purpose we want it to serve is to improve the well-being of our community, of everyone in our community, to respect resource limits, and to distribute resources fairly as well. So those three things, it felt like there was agreement on them. And that was great. And it's a bit like saying, well, who wouldn't agree with those things? They all sound very straightforward, and of course that's what we want. I suspect things could get a little bit more challenging when we really get into the detail of what that means and what fair resource distribution means and who decides that, but we haven't quite come up against those barriers yet, and maybe it won't be, I don't know. But getting that clear purpose, just those few sentences, has felt very uniting for the group. We all buy into that, we all agree with it, and we recognise there's some work involved in then actually implementing that and seeing what might come up then.
Creating a shared vision when you pull people together is pretty critical, actually, I think. And that was one of the reasons why we were really lucky to have a really, really good facilitator for those meetings. But it doesn't mean that everybody absolutely has to be on the same page and they have to subscribe to everything that you're saying. Because I think there was common ground with a lot of the things that we came up with, enough for us to agree that it was a really worthwhile piece of work to do. And people may have disagreed on, you know, some of the basic principles around importing, exporting, and, you know, growth, and, you know, legitimate growth of businesses. But on the whole, that shared vision that we managed to reach, which brought people with us, was critical.
One of the first things that we did once we pulled the stakeholder forum together in Totnes was we did a bit of a brainstorming and a visioning session to create a shared vision for where we wanted the economy to go. You know, what was it for, who was it for, and so on. And that was fun.
I think one of the things that we did really well was that we didn't bring a really strong transition agenda into the work. What we did was the thing that is beautiful, I think, about transition, which is to get people to think about their local area and the kind of impact of outside pressures on it. And when we talked about the kind of economy that we wanted, that we, you know, and we had that group discussion with those stakeholders, we didn't need to talk about any of that really, because it was more kind of, is it working? And very quickly, after, you know, probably about an hour, everybody was like, no, it's not working. The, you know, inward investment, that's not working here. You know, we don't have any big employers anymore, and actually the value is in our smaller businesses. And then we started talking about young people and how the opportunities weren't there for them, so that they left the town, and that felt like a real loss. And so there were things that were just kind of intrinsic kind of gut feelings that people had about, you know, what made a healthy community, that came out without needing to talk about peak or low climate change.